welcome back to Bridges. We're talking to Lonnie Hamilton, who's telling us how to avoid the manipulation that many women face in their quest to develop healthy relationships. Yes. And it's a great book. We're going to tell you how, there it is on the screen, a picture of the book. We'll tell you how to purchase the book at the end of this segment. But when we left the first segment, we promised to come back with a discussion of the 90-minute rule, a 90-day rule. Yes. 90-day rule. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it is the rule that says that you should not be intimate in a relationship for the first 90 days. Yes. And the discussion around that I really love is, Chrysler and Jeep and all those folks don't even, they take 90 days to figure out if they want you to work in their plant. So women can at least take 90 days to decide if they want to move to the next level with someone that they're engaged with. Absolutely. Yeah. And what do you think about that?
I agree with it.
Really?
Yes, from Steve Harvey's book, I agree with it. Sometimes there are exceptions to that rule. So I don't want any woman to feel as though if they've been intimate prior to 90 days, that it's a bad thing for their relationship. Sometimes there are exceptions to that rule. However, I do agree with it. I do agree that you should take that time to hold off intimacy until you realize and really know that this is someone that you want to be involved with on that level, because after that, things do change.
So this current thought out here, and I heard it again just this morning on my way in to meet with you today, I heard, the third date is really when intimacy becomes an expectation.
That's the common norm, unfortunately.
When did that get to be the common norm? I was really a little surprised by that.
That's the common norm. If you look at it statistically speaking, by the third date, intimacy is to occur between two individuals. That's what they say, whoever they are. I don't know who made up that.
Do you even know concept. Their middle name by the third date?
Exactly. But we live in such a society where everything is so instant, from what we eat to how we act. Everything is so instant. We want instant gratification right now. And I think that plays along with that, whereas you feel as though by the third date, I want to be intimate with you.
So what does a guy think if that happens on the third date?
A guy could think a wide array of
so
anything.
there's no sort of stereotype around the woman who sleeps with you on the third date.
Well, for most men it's not. For some it is. It just depends on that type of man, and it actually depends on what it is that he's looking for. If all he is looking for is intimacy, once the third date occurs and he gets that intimacy, unless he wants to continue being intimate with you, then that's pretty much the end of the involvement for him. Now, if he wants to continue being intimate with you after a per se third date, then he'll continue that, but things will change and you will notice that change, because there will no longer be any dates. It will just be intimacy.
Intimacy, right. Well, you have a chapter in your book called, it's actually chapter 5, What to Do when a Dream Becomes a Nightmare. So can you give us the highlights how we should respond once the dream becomes a nightmare?
Once the dream becomes a nightmare, it's pretty much saying you've met your dream guy, and all of a sudden everything changes, and it changes into a nightmare. Once it comes to that point, you have to make sure that you take care of yourself. You have to make sure that you find that healing place to where as you become healed emotionally, to where as you get yourself back together so that you can actually get back on track. And it's going to take some time, because now you realize that this man hurt you. Now you realize that this man has disappointed you. Now you realize that things were not as though they seemed. So now it's going to take you taking that time to actually get yourself back together, to actually pull back, step off the dating scene, and do whatever it is that you have to do to find your healing place, to get things together emotionally and mentally and sometimes physically.
Is that part of owning your responsibility?
Yes.
For this process?
Yeah, and a lot of women, and I was going to go there as well, a lot of women need to own their own responsibility in all of this taking place. You need to actually face yourself and own it. Take accountability for what you did in regards to this entire relationship. Take responsibility if you move too fast. Take responsibility over if you gave out too much too soon. You have to accept that. And once you accept that and take that accountability, then you forgive yourself for the mistakes you made and you move forward.
What about you have in here that you should implement a firm no return policy? I like that.
Yes, I've got that. I've been in retail for such a very long time, and some retail establishments, depending on what you purchase, have a firm no return policy. you can't bring it back.
Right.
And depending on the relationship, depending on the type of man, depending on how things actually transpire between the two of you, sometimes you cannot take that individual back. So you will have men who will never come back, which is good in some cases, and you will have men who will always try to come back, especially if they find a certain level of comfort with you, if they find a certain level of things being given to them by you. They're going to always want to come back. You're going to be done with them and done with them time and time again, and they're always going to want to come back. You have to establish a firm no return policy, which means I'm not taking you back for no reason at all. You have to remind yourself of everything that you've gone through with this individual. You know, you have to remind yourself of the cons, not the pros, because every involvement may have their pros, but you have to remind yourself of the cons and say, you know what, I'm not going
back there.
I'm not going back
So
there.
should women then just stop all communication with them? No email, no phone calls, no let's be friends, you know, because it always sort of defaults to we can still be friends.
Right. It always defaults to we could be friends.
Right.
And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it just depends on the actual time length of the relationship. And sometimes it was a good relationship and you just realize that, you know, it may not have been for you, wrong timing, whatever the case may be. So you can be friends with that individual and you can possibly get that back. You can possibly rekindle that fire that you once shared, you know, along the lines after certain changes are made. However, with the man that has manipulated you purposely, who hurt you purposely, who took advantage of you purposely, this is a man that you should break off all communication with. You have the good side about it, to whereas you can communicate with this person. You guys didn't have a bad breakup. He's not a bad person. It's just wrong timing or something like that. So that's different than, you know, being involved with a manipulating man who took advantage of you and you're done with this type of individual. That type of person you should not communicate with at all, because if you do, he's going to continue to try and manipulate you.
Yeah, wow. Get over it, get over him, get a life.
All right. Pretty much, you have to come to the point of getting over it. You can't sit and you know, eat all the ice cream and watch all the Lifetime movies and cry about the situation.
Yeah.
You have to come to a point where you get over it. You have to come to a point where you just tell yourself that it's over. It may hurt in the beginning, but you have to get over it. You have to get over it and get on with your life. You have to get over it and move
How do
forward.
men do that? Because you know what happens with women, we talk about it, and we talk, and we talk. And we all have 45 girlfriends, and we all have to tell the same story to the 45 girlfriends at least a half dozen times.
Right.
And that's over ice cream, that's over wine, and you know, all these women are like, yeah, he's a dog, and he was awful, and you know, do you want me to go beat him up for you? You know, so you kind of love, it's hard to kind of move out of it, because women have such a support group that keeps you stuck. And men don't seem to get stuck quite like that.
We get stuck.
Do you?
You just don't. You just won't know it.
So really, all those guys who broke my heart were really at home. Some of them with really broken hearts themselves.
I wouldn't say they were at home doing what you may have been doing, but that doesn't mean they were not feeling the pain.
Yeah.
Men just kind of handle it differently, or you won't see it. You know, we have our close group of friends that we speak to as well, but instead of us speaking over the situation over wine or ice cream, they may take them to a sports bar. Let's go watch a game, and we'll talk about it in passing, or we'll talk about it during halftime, and we'll just kind of touch on it. But I'm helping you get over it by taking you to watch the game or something like that. We just do things differently. Men process things differently, but we hurt. A lot of times men suppress it. We don't deal with it. And we just kind of move on to the next relationship, which is not a good thing, because we still have suppressed hurt that we're not dealing with.
Which we talked about last week is being sometimes the foundation of the whole development of this manipulator character, personality.
Absolutely. A lot of men develop that personality because they have been hurt.
Yeah.
And they may have been hurt by one particular person who they fell in love with and they gave the world to, and that woman hurt them. And so now, to get back at that woman, they're taking out their anger or their hurt or frustration on every woman that they meet, because they may not be able to directly get back at that woman, because that woman may not care.
Right.
So, you know, when she doesn't care, me getting back at you means nothing. But if I can displace that anger, hurt, and frustration on every woman that I meet because I'm not properly dealing with it, then that's what I'm going to do.
Wow. We only have 2 minutes left, and there are actually 10 steps to overcoming commitment fears in this book. You guys just have to get the book. That's all there is to it. You just have to buy the book. There's not going to be enough time on this show to really talk to you about everything that you need to know in this book. But give me the major step in our last 2 minutes that you suggest is necessary in overcoming commitment fears.
Overcoming commitment fears, you have to realize pretty much that every man is not the same. You have to realize that you will one day meet that man that's for you. But until you get to that point, to overcome all of that stuff, you have to first and foremost deal with yourself, and you have to understand that, you know, things are not just going to come as easy as they seem. They're not going to come when you want them to. You just have to be patient. You have to wait. And all of those 10 steps, I don't remember them all by heart right now, but they're in those 10 steps. That's just basically what it's saying. Deal with yourself, be patient, and invest time in getting yourself together. He'll come along, and when he does come along, you can't look at him the same as you would anybody else. You can't take baggage from a previous relationship or involvement into this new relationship and involvement. And don't involve yourself with anyone until everything inside of you emotionally and mentally is taken care of. Because you don't want to take out all of your hurt and frustration on the next man who may actually be a good man.
The right guy.
Right.
Might be the right guy. You know, what we really need to talk about, we won't have time to talk about it today, but we really need to talk about those very complicated dynamics between black men and black women.
Right.
I mean, that is actually a month's worth of conversation in and of itself.
Absolutely.
But you know, we do in our culture bring some learned behaviors that make this developing of relationships a very challenging
Yes.
process between the two of us. But I am so happy that you have been with us today and you've given us a great start on a really complicated conversation. But
Absolutely.
You'll hang with me for just a second,
Oh,
won't
yes.
you?
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you on the other side of this break. We'll be right back.